Hi, everybody. This is Don Davis, one of your co-hosts on your favorite podcast, Supply Chain Secrets. And just giving you a recap of today's episode, what you're about to hear. And today's episode features the announcement by Bryan Most on him changing his role and where he's moving to. And I'm not going to share anything. You got to listen to the show to hear it. But it's really exciting to hear what he's doing. And then we talk about, the changes here at NYSHEX and what's happening with Bryan's role. And our guest was Lynn Wong. And so Lynn will be taking over many of the responsibilities from Bryan. And so Lynn gives her background and she talks about what was her journey to come to NYSHEX, her ability to work with customers and some of the things she's been doing, and shared some of those insights that she's gained in her role so far. And then we talked a little bit more about the types of things she's working on and some of those solutions. And there's some pretty exciting stuff that's coming out. So I think you'll really like it. So give it a listen. I think you'll like the show. And I think it was a good one. So anyway, again, Bryan, thank you for all the time on the show. And I wish you the best. So everybody, give it a listen and enjoy the show.
You are now listening to the Supply Chain Secrets Podcast with Bryan Most and Don Davis.
Hello, everyone. I'm Bryan Most, SVP of Retail Strategy here at NYSHEX and former VP of Supply Chain at Walmart.
And I'm Don Davis. I'm the Senior Vice President of Carrier Strategy here at NYSHEX and former executive of Hapag-Lloyd and CMA CGM.
And we're back again with our podcast, Supply Chain Secrets. Don, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, it's the end of April here. It's almost my birthday, so it's exciting times around here.
It is.
How about you?
It's kind of May 1st Eve for contracts, even though contracts don't all start on May 1st anymore. It's always that time of the year when you've been doing this for a long time that you have circled on your calendar for foreseeable future. But no, everything's good. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of our listeners out there are glad that we're to May 1 and a lot of new contracts will be getting kicked off.
Yeah, and hopefully it was a successful contract season for everybody. I know it's like Christmas time for most people. They ask for a lot of things, and hopefully they're able to check out everything off their list.
Exactly right. Well, Don, today's going to be a bit bittersweet for me. We do have an announcement to make. So after a year and a half at NYSHEX, it's going to be time for me to take on a new challenge. And I tell you what, I'm beyond grateful for the amazing opportunity to help make the supply chain better with all the former NYSHEX colleagues, especially during this period of severe volatility. But I tell you what, it's been really fun working with all the folks building cool tech and great products that are helping our members, and senior leadership team and the board have been so supportive of some of the enterprise work that we've been taking on. And finally, our members, innovative, trailblazing, creative, willing to jump out there and take some chances with us. It's been a ton of fun. And Don, to be honest, this has been great, man. You and I doing a podcast. Who would have ever thought after the Ever Given got stuck in the Suez and we did an initial podcast that, we would be still doing this over a year later. It's been great, man.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's crazy to think about that, right? It's been over a year that this started. And, I wasn't sure how it was going to go, you being on the retail side and me being on the carrier side. I was used to like customers beating me up for a long time. And I guess, those tables have kind of turned in the industry, but, I was a little fearful that you're going to be, used to just like having me in a headlock or something. But no, it's been a lot of fun. I think it's been great sharing insight, and the feedback's been tremendous. I mean, we do have a bit of a following out there, believe it or not. And it's been really great to be part of it. And it has been a tremendous amount of fun.
Yeah, the listeners and the feedback has been awesome. And again, if we've helped in any way, that was really just kind of our goal. Now, here's the great thing. This is not the end of Supply Chain Secrets, and hopefully you'll have me back as a future guest. It's going to continue on. And here's the bittersweet part of my announcement is I'm still going to stay in the industry, and I'm going to be working for CMA CGM. And so it's kind of funny, me being the shipper guy for this period of time on the podcast and now going to the carrier side. It is a bit of a homecoming for me. For those that don't know me, I actually started my career a long, long time ago on the carrier side with the original U.S. flag Sealand. So that tells you how long I've been doing this. But it is a bit of a homecoming. But I'm going to be honest with you, Don. hearing you talk about, the carriers and how well they were doing and, all the cool investments they were making, it kind of piqued my interest. So you might be part of the reason why I'm going back to the carrier side, to be honest. You made such a
Yeah.
good case.
Well, and I'm a really cool guy, so you're like, wow, he must have spending all that time in a carrier, must have influenced him in some way. So I understand the desire. And look, I mean, I think CMA CGM is a terrific company. I certainly enjoyed my time there, and they're very lucky to have a guy like you working with them. And I'm sure the shippers are going to be, thrilled to have somebody like you supporting them. So that's really cool.
Well, thanks, Don. I appreciate that. I'm very, very excited. I'll be the Senior Vice President of Global Accounts, so I'll get to work with the top strategic customers, similar to what I've been doing at NYSHEX and working on end-to-end solutions. One of the topics we've discussed a number of times on this podcast is what are the carriers doing with some of the profits? Are they reinvesting these profits in ways that are going to help with service improvements in the future? Are they going to help in other areas of our business in the supply chain? And one of the things that excites me about going to CMA CGM is they've made a lot of those investments. And so I'll be in a position to continue to work on bringing predictability to supply chains, just like we've been doing at NYSHEX. And of course, there are a lot of CMA CGM customers that have NYSHEX agreements. So there will still be that connectivity for me. We'll still be working towards the same, goals and objectives of making this a more collaborative and trusting, supply chain and environment to work together in. So that's the fun part for me is while it's not a complete goodbye, it's I'll probably see you later down the road.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, listen, we have a great partnership with a number of carriers, including CMA CGM. So that's really cool that you'll still be part of us in a different way. But, I know that my existing relationships with CMA CGM are still really terrific. And there's a lot of great people there. And to have you on the team there, that's really awesome.
Well, good. Well, one of the great things about being in a leadership role is actually building a team and creating succession plans. And super, super excited to have a guest on the podcast today who actually will be taking on some of my former responsibilities at NYSHEX with our enterprise customers. And that introduction is Miss Lynn Wong. Lynn, welcome to the podcast, and congratulations on your new role and accepting more responsibility within NYSHEX with our enterprise team.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So hopefully you'll get a chance to do some additional future podcasts, but I am super excited to have somebody like Lynn kind of take on the work that we have started with those innovative members that I talked about and really take that to the next level. We've actually created a whole team of people that are working with our strategic, customers to build, again, really cool technology and products that are helping solve some of their challenges. And Lynn has absolutely got the background to do it. Lynn actually started her career on the carrier side as well. So she was one of the famous Maersk trainees back in the day. I know there's quite a few of them out there, but started her career with Maersk, moved on to the shipper side. She worked at Home Depot. I was very proud to work with her at Walmart as well. And not only has she worked in the United States, but she's worked in Singapore, she's worked in China, and had a number of strategic leadership roles, both with people leadership, managing third-party suppliers, operational roles, you name it. I'm telling you, Lynn's done it. So I can't wait for her to tell you a little bit more about her background. And bottom line, she's also got a passion for people. And so you'll know that after you hear her tell her story. So Lynn, after that introduction, it'd be great for you to just fill in the listeners a little bit more about your journey.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. And it's quite a treat to go from being a fan of the podcast to actually being on it itself. So thanks for having me. It is bittersweet. But if there's one thing I've learned in my time in the industry and in my professional lives, relationships matter, and the ones that matter follow you. So all the best, Bryan, in your new role. I have no doubt that CMA has gained a real asset, and that Don and the rest of the team at NYSHEX will continue to build upon the legacy that we've all started together. So, as I prepped for today's podcast, I was thinking back about the common threads. What can I tell you that LinkedIn can't tell you about where I've worked and what I've done? So as Bryan had mentioned, I've had roles in marketing and pricing and analyst work, operations work, graduated into strategy and the opportunities to lead people and teams. But that thread that connects the four companies that I've worked for and am working for is that they're all values-driven companies. So my career began at Maersk, where, the one value that personally resonates with me still to today is constant care, where you actively work on today while planning for tomorrow, looking out for changes in the environment and making sure that you're ready. And with Maersk, I learned the passion and the productivity can come with a group of people and teams around the world shipping boxes, right? I learned about the movement of containers and how it literally takes a village, so many people, so many parts. When I had my opportunity to move to Home Depot, that was a huge transition into retail. And yes, they say retail is detail, but retail is very much a people business. So again, it was a passionate group in the supply chain. And this time it gave me an opportunity to see inside the box. And so when I think about following the thread of shipping and looking at the people in retail, Home Depot impressed upon me the value of taking care of your people, taking care of your team so they can take care of customers, and giving back into the community. So when that phone call came to consider an opportunity at Walmart, I looked into the values and there were definitely similar overlaps. There was a huge commitment through respect for the individual and service to the customer. But joining Walmart was then quite a defining moment in my career because of the diversity of what you can buy from a Walmart. Everyday low cost, everyday low prices extends to everything from groceries to TV. And in the decade of time that I've had there, I've had a ton of opportunity to continue to work with service providers, continue to directly serve customers, and really start to understand the power of collaboration and customer service. And so when I got that phone call from Gordon and we reconnected and he shared that he wasn't on a mission to make the world a better place through effective digital contracts. And in essence, it was to help shippers and carriers make and keep good promises because it reduces waste, it increases efficiencies. I knew it was time to start a new adventure, and I'm closing in on 1 year here at NYSHEX.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, to think that it's been a year, right? Because I think for a lot of us, I mean, it's a fairly young company, right? So that, I'm not, people haven't been here that long, but a year, we've grown so much over that time. People like point to people like us that have been here for a year or more, and they're like, oh, you guys are the veterans. And it's like, hey, it's only been a year. But it's incredible when you think about everything that's happened during that time. And maybe you could share a little bit your thoughts, how you've been working with customers, the type of collaboration, some of the things that we're working on as far as transparency. It'd be great to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah. And so the perspective that I've gained through the years, having lived and worked in 3 countries and had a chance to travel, to work and play in over 40, are, again, 2 things that continue to hold me constant. One is that we really do have more common ground than we give ourselves the opportunity to embrace. And 2, relationships matter. So as those 2 things relate to customer service, we can make decisions of whether we want to just have a transactional relationship with a customer, or if we would like to invest in a longer term relationship with a customer and move it from pure service into collaboration. And collaboration meaning the opportunity to understand each other's context, hear diverse perspectives, and constantly work together to find those win-win solutions.
Yeah, that's great. And I think your background on having that shipper perspective, but also like this blended of a carrier background too, uniquely positions you to really understand both sides of the equation. And I think bring a lot of perspective to our members when you're working with them on the enterprise team. Is there anything that stands out to you in terms of like that context where you feel like your background has really helped you gain insights into the shipper perspective and explain things? Or can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. So my transition from Maersk to Home Depot was very special because within a very short period of time, the team that I was a part of, so my boss at Maersk, within a matter of a week, then literally became my service provider. And so I underestimated the depth and breadth of the relationships and those impact, right? So I thought, okay, I understand how to move boxes. I understand how to work with them. I know where the SOPs are and I know who to call. But spending time at Home Depot helped me understand that the import team is part of the customer's supply chain. And so whether you were in inventory, you were in procurement or distribution, everyone, even on a bad day, were struggling together to serve the customer. And that internal collaboration within the shipper should not be underestimated. And it should also be shared to an extent with the service provider community. So one of my proudest accomplishments in my time was the opportunity to work with our procurement team on behalf of the operations team that I was on and our sourcing teams to identify the right service provider to sign up for a 3-year contract. And in that process, it was a little awkward because it was the first time we were working with our procurement team who reported into a different division, not supply chain. And we had to use their tools to support our negotiations. But I have been at that table to witness where if we start together from the beginning and we explain to our legal teams, to our procurement teams, to our finance teams, what we were trying to accomplish for the customer, and we trusted each other, and sometimes we gave a little to get a little, but for the customer, we could yield good results. So the procurement experience ended with over $20 million in savings for the company across the life of the contract. And needless to say, we became good friends and good business partners for the length of the time we were all at Depot.
Lynn, you talk about that word trust, and it's one that I've always admired. You've always had the ability to create an environment where you bring multiple parties together in a trusting way to be able to share, right? I mean, because, trust is obviously, earned over time in many ways, but ultimately to truly get to the core issue of some of the challenges and the problems, there has to be a level of trust and transparency to really find out what the root cause or the pain are so you can start to build towards solutions. And one of the things you've been doing while you've been at NYSHEX is, again, you've been doing a lot of listening and a lot of interacting with some of our earliest members and creating these environments to share. I'd love to just, hear your perspective on what are some of the things or the common issues or pain points you've heard from customers, and then ultimately, what do you think some of those solutions look like in the future to help with that?
Those transactional relationships become trusting relationships, one interaction at a time, one transaction at a time. And the mutual willingness to invest in the relationship through the use of data, through the exploration of new technology, and then proven by results is really core. So the first things I got to do when I joined NYSHEX last year was to participate in a shipper research project. It was one of my favorite things and really special for me to be listening to each of our early adopter members, as well as a few NYSHEX friendlies. I call them NYSHEX friendlies because they understood the power of two-way committed contracts. They were thinking through how we would fit. And importantly, they were willing to engage in committed contracts with carriers on their own terms. So we had a month of listening to a pretty diverse group of shippers. They came from agriculture, footwear, furniture, sports gear, restaurant supplies, retail, online, and brick and mortar. And, we had engaged them to tell us a little bit more about how they achieve contract performance and what are the things that matter to them. It was incredibly interesting, again, to find that common thread, that common ground, where two things were top of mind for them. And because we had listened to them last summer, it was right after the first round of Trans-Pacific eastbound contracts were locked in. They were very concerned about making sure the contracts performed. So contract accountability was top of mind for them. These contracts that they have signed up for and committed to, will they perform? And what could they do to support its performance? And then two, they also understood that investing in the shipper-carrier relationship is important, but these shippers also needed the partnership of their supply chain teammates, right? So forecasting and allocation was also top of mind for them. So these two highlights were called out, and there was also quite a bit of common ground around what happens if they don't. And the consequences of contracts not performing could quickly amount to the millions because of the absence of equipment or if allocations were not filled. And these ocean freight transportation increases could continue and create knock-on effects in their supply chains, which would then result in lots of disappointed customers not to mention high supply chain costs. So a lot of diversity in where they came from, but a lot of common threads in how they were thinking about the problems that they could be solving together.
And Don, here's the cool thing, right? I mean, performance management of contracts and forecasting and allocations, while yes, they're important to shippers, I would probably say those are pretty important to carriers as well, right? And this is where you have this opportunity to find this mutual benefit. Would you agree?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. And I think this is something that has been, an issue for a long time. And it's just been exacerbated with the market condition you've seen. And frankly speaking, I believe this is something that's here to stay, that you're going to see carriers manage their fleet much more efficiently, and they're much better at planning their capacity, which means that the allocations and the type of controls that carriers have had aren't going to go away. And so that creates an environment where shippers are going to have to have some type of visibility or better awareness on how they're performing, because I think this has been evolving. Several carriers have launched new systems. They see the benefit of planning. And as you see like these new solutions emerge, like spot products and such, you have to have a sense of like, okay, I'm going to partition a portion of my ship, 5% or 20%, whatever that may be. And then 80% is going to be sort of fixed. But how do you start to make sure that 80% performs? Well, this is because you have an allocation solution and you have to figure out a way to share that with the customers. And I don't think all carriers are in the same place there, but I've seen quite a bit of movement from different carriers, and some are ahead of others. But in general, this seems to be the direction the industry's moving, which just amplifies the importance for both shippers and carriers that they have solutions around how shippers and carriers can not just manage their allocation, but have some transparency with it.
Well, and Lynn, talked about data and common data sets. And so whether you signed a NYSHEX agreement, whether you signed a non-NYSHEX agreement, a lot of agreements I've heard, longer term agreements, still have some degree of performance management to it and some degree of accountability, whether it's defaults or incentives or what have you. But this idea of managing performance and reconciling performance, right, on a frequent basis. I mean, you can't wait to the end of the year anymore to say, oh, did I make my MQC or did I make my commitments or not? Now these contracts are more complex, right? I mean, and there needs to be a way to do an efficient reconciliation and management of performance, again, on a common data set that both sides actually agree to.
Yeah. And I think that this change in how carriers have been working is here to stay. I mean, some would argue and say like, oh, we're going to go back to my 2018 version of what normal looked like. And, it's where there was ample supply and I could move in between carriers and rates were low. I don't think that's ever going to happen again, at least not in my lifetime, because I believe that carriers can kind of see that, well, first of all, believe it or not, people can pay a lot more than $1,000 to move a container. So that now you could argue like, should it be 25,000? And, that probably seems like a high number. But the point being is that the rate can go up and people can still move cargo. So I think carriers also have seen that it's much nicer to be profitable than it is to be, scraping nickels together to keep your company solvent. So I think in this environment, it just makes sense that the carriers are going to continue to have these type of controls. They're going to manage their capacity. And, my sense is if the ships aren't full, they're going to start reducing capacity because, again, they want to make money and they can see the effects of certainly supply and demand. And that while those economics have always been there, now that you're at a point where carriers are making great returns, this stuff is here to stay for sure.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. And so, Lynn, when you take it back to the research you did, so you did a lot of listening, you found common threads, and then how does that then translate into developing something to potentially help these members?
Yeah, it was really good that despite the diversity of the members that we listened to, that there was common ground, and it was really encouraging where they all helped NYSHEX think about how we should invest our time and resources to support these customers. So we would definitely encourage to strengthen our data and technology capabilities to help ensure that NYSHEX contracts perform as desired and the results have proven themselves. We were also encouraged to expand our data and technology capabilities to support the shipper's total contract portfolio. So at its simplest core, shipping contracts are signed by the shipper and the carrier. And inside of those 20, 30 pages of text and rates, there are quite a few terms that need to be managed and upheld to keep those promises. And the cool part about working at NYSHEX is then I have teammates who, do what I do, but they interface with the carriers. And while we pay attention to rates, we're really focused on bringing the data together in an efficient manner so shippers can easily get, see, and use their data to really drive total contract fulfillment. So collaboration can really bring prosperity to both carriers and shippers.
Yeah, that's really great insight. And I think it's just really valuable to have that interaction with shippers and understand their point of view. And I think, again, you're uniquely positioned with your background to understand, both sides of the equation and how it makes sense, which I think is an advantage for us at NYSHEX, because I think if people without the industry experience, while they may understand the technology and how data works, but if they don't understand the nuance of the shipping industry, which again, a lot of people are hearing a lot more about supply chain than they ever heard before, but there's a ton of nuance to it. I think you having that perspective can help shippers get to a place faster because, again, your background helps you understand what their needs are, but then you have the technology piece is where NYSHEX comes in, and how do we make this work for shippers? Would you agree with that assessment?
I'd like to think so. I am certainly doing what I can to partner with just the incredible talent that we have been able to bring together at NYSHEX. That it really is pretty awesome every Monday morning to see the talent that we're adding from various shippers, logistics companies, and different carriers, all just equally excited about the mission for digital contracts to help bring carriers and shippers together, reduce waste, create efficiencies. And I get to be part of helping the product teams bring alive technology that can create value. So certainly couldn't have done it, not possible without the collection, literally, of the industry talent that we have.
Lynn, one of the other things that I hear a lot about is obviously managing performance and reconciling performance is important. But it's almost kind of like that's almost a rear view mirror thing. Like it's kind of happened, it's in the past. Yes, we have to know what happened and how to deal with it. But I do hear a lot of people talking about, like, I want to look through the windshield. I want to kind of see what's coming, and I want to be prompted, or I want insights into things that I could do to either accelerate something that's happening good or maybe avoid something that might be happening bad. Do you have any insights or perspectives based on the learnings or some of the technology advancements that might help with that in the future?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of technology out there available that shippers can choose to piece together to take them from their journey from contracting to then forecasting, having that operational forecast or that rolling forecast, translating to carrier allocation, and then execution of the orders. And so here at NYSHEX, with the contract as our core, we're continuing to strengthen and build out those capabilities. So today, we are, of course, able to report on the performance, the accomplishment of MQC for both our shippers and carriers. And very soon, we will be able to give shippers more technology in an easy to access way so they can look back, but also look ahead to how they can proactively manage their commitments to their carriers. And the carriers will have access to that same data so they can plan ahead as well. When I say easy, we understand that there's a level of sophistication and maturity that could differ for each shipper. And our technology will be able to accommodate them wherever they are in the process. And so more to come in the months ahead very soon. And just really excited to stay with the shipper on their journey to maximizing contract fulfillment.
I mean, it's super exciting. I mean, Don, this is what we've been trying to do for a long time, right? I mean, obviously, everybody has a plan, but we all know that things happen and the plan changes. But to have advanced warning and know that a change is going to happen, to be able to do something about it that could actually benefit both sides is truly game changing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is really exciting because I think that carriers want shippers to perform, and shippers, I believe, want to perform, but it's just there's a lot of things happening at the same time, and it's a complex business, and you have port omissions, blank sailings, and all these things that are happening. You use a variety of carriers on a variety of different loops. And how do I know that, like, oh yeah, I have 4 TEUs open on such and such ship system? It's hard to understand that. And there's not a real easy way for shippers to consume this. And each carrier has different abilities in this space. Some don't even have an allocation management solution. Some aren't providing reports of visibility. So I understand the challenge there. And I think what we've been able to do is put our finger on a problem that, based on everything else we've been doing with contract compliance, we can really help in this space. And to me, it's a game changer. But okay, so I think we're at a point in the show, Lynn, where our guest gets to turn the tables. I mean, Bryan's been peppering you with questions for about a half an hour now, and I'm sure there's a lot of things on your mind. So here's your chance to turn the tables. You're the podcast host. You can ask us any question you like. Is there anything you want to ask either Bryan or myself?
Yeah, for both of you, maybe a few things. One, I'd love to hear your secrets on how you stay inspired in this tumultuous industry that unites us all. And two, to get more specific, I'd like your thoughts on what changes will we be celebrating, 5 years from today in the shipping industry, and what are those early indicators that give you hope?
Yeah, I'll take a shot at it. I mean, what keeps me inspired is I like to stay challenged. I like to learn. I like to solve problems. And ultimately, I want to have a positive impact, right, on those that I'm working with and around. And this is an absolutely amazing industry to work in, because the outcome of the work that happens in supply chain has so many positive impacts around the world. The way it can lift up a nation, a community, the way it can deliver medical goods to help, people get better, or Christmas presents that are under their Christmas tree, right? But there are so many opportunities to improve that process and so many stakeholders to work with that it always is kind of fascinating to me. And, I think that work is going to obviously be able to continue for a long period of time. So hopefully I can continue to kind of work and learn. But the one thing I would tell you that I think we're going to be celebrating, Lynn, is without a doubt, companies want to be better corporate citizens. Obviously, they want to do better in local communities and with their own employees and colleagues and associates, but they want to do better for the environment in the world. And you're starting to see these really early green shoots of some of these new technologies that are being pioneered and making a real difference, not just for the asset owner, but also the customers as well, who are actually participating in helping drive the innovation forward by investing in it as true collaborators. And we've had a couple of recent podcasts that have talked about it, but I think 5-10 years down the road, we're going to be celebrating some really meaningful sustainability type of accomplishments, at the same time becoming more efficient as a global supply chain.
Yeah. So on that question of what keeps me inspired, well, I've been in the shipping industry for a long time, and I like to think that it's really in my DNA now. I have shipping and supply chain in my blood, and it's really fun to be part of something where you're making solutions, and you can see that we're finding ways to create value for people. And it's just the excitement that people have when they see the types of things we're doing. It's really amazing. And I think if you look at our growth, it's a sign that we can see this is working and it's creating value. And that, to me, is really a lot of fun, but also, gets me out of bed in the morning to, like, all right, let's find some more solutions, because I don't think we've uncovered or solved every problem. There's plenty to solve. But the fact that we have all this momentum and we've been able to do these things successfully is incredible. 5 years from now. So I just want a disclaimer here. I'm really bad at predicting things. So, they're usually wrong, but I'll take a stab at it anyway, since you asked the question. And I think what we're moving towards is an environment where there's going to be much broader adoption of two-way committed contracts. And I think we've started to see that. But I think you're going to start to see carriers take different positions much more on a market basis. And what I mean by that is you're going to see, I have a lane here that's two-way committed, and I'm going to have a lane here that's like FAK, and then I'm going to have a lane here that's spot. But I think carriers are going to start to take different positions. And you've started to see that already with some of these spot tools coming out. But I think the effectiveness of these spot tools are limited by the fact if you have 50% fall down on a ship, well, how do you do dynamic pricing in that environment? It's very difficult. So I think you're seeing that the way contracting was done, 2-3 years ago is going to completely change in the next 5 years. And I think you're going to be looking at different types of products. Do I want the committed product? Do I want the spot product? Is it FAK? I think we're going to see the industry completely change and move in that direction because I think it makes sense for both parties. And it gives then customers a choice to say, well, I'm not ready to commit. That's fine. You can use the spot product. Oh, I'm ready to commit. Okay, here you go. Here's your committed contract. So I think having those choices, it just makes sense for the carriers and shippers to do it because now you can plan. And if you can't plan, that's fine. There will still be an outlet there, but it just creates much more efficiency for both shippers and carriers.
Well, thank you for your answers. That's definitely something to stay hopeful for and help deliver maybe on some of those visions.
For sure. For sure. Well, I think we're at the point where we're at the end of the show. And Lynn, I just want to thank you for coming on the show today. And you've been a great guest. And Bryan, my man, it's been fun. I've really enjoyed being on this podcast with you. And it's been an incredible journey. And I wish you the best success. I'm sure you're going to crush it.
Thank you, Don. And same for Lynn. I am so excited for her and this opportunity. I know she's going to do absolute amazing things. Every previous role that she and I have worked with together, she has absolutely done really cool stuff. And so I know she's going to kill it. And Don, thanks for doing this, man. This has been so much fun. You and I hopefully will cross paths down the road, but maybe some way you'll invite me back on and I can come on as a guest again.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure how producer Max feels about it, but in my book, you're absolutely fine. So we'll see you again soon. So that's the show, everybody. So thanks for listening. Don't forget, review us, give us feedback, hit that like button where you find us, and I hope you liked the show today. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Supply Chain Secrets Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcast network.